Welcome one, welcome all, and I am joined by the big man himself, Statsational. We're finally back for a NASCAR show. This is your first one in a month. This is my first one in 3 weeks. And you're also, I got to make it out there. You're at the live final for MLB baseball here for FanDuel, right?
Yeah, we're in Napa right now for the live final. So it's been nice. Yeah, definitely one of the nicer venues for these live finals, considering I believe FanDuel last year was Philadelphia. No knock to Philly, but Napa and Philly are worlds apart.
So you guys, tasting any wine out there or anything like that so far?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We did. Well, Friday night was the like the reception they did at a castle, which is also a winery, and everything was really nice. And then, believe it or not, I kind of got stuck here at the resort yesterday because I was not going to do the tour. I've got sciatica pain that is insane right now. So I'll be able to make it over to the live final because it's on campus, but I'm not walking around all the wineries yesterday. So I kind of stayed in the local bar over here, and just did the best I could mobility wise. But yeah, it's not going to be fun. They're going to have to golf cart my ass over to the finals.
Well, hopefully that just means that you're set up for some big success here in the MLB Live final that we got on FanDuel. I know JVC. We also got Mangone there. I know that Dan is there too, and so is Sully Bro Chill too. Sully Bro Chill is
Sully. Yeah, Sully. It's Sully's in it. Yeah, our boy Dan from MMA. This is his first live final. Ooh. So I actually drove in from the airport with Dan, and yeah, I've always wanted to go to Napa with Mangone. So it's really been a dream come true.
Yes, that's going to be fun. Hopefully we can see an RPS logo up at the top there. And first, obviously we have the NASCAR race tonight. I know that this is going to be a little bit shorter of a show, guys, just so you know. We're going to end probably around 12:30, and the big reason for that is because we want to get Statsational into that live final so you can field a good lineup and hopefully take that bad boy down. So right now, let's kind of go over Richmond here. I watched the trucks race last night. It was pretty solid until Connor Jones, something happened with his engine. It was just terrible. I was having a decent day until he just crapped out there. I didn't even look like he got hit or anything. It just looked like an engine issue. But it's a short track. It's about 3/4 of a mile long. I think it's 400 laps that we get tonight too. So very Dom heavy, right, Stats?
It is. Historically, this has been a track where starting up front and the pole for sure has paid off in almost 70% of the time. The top six scoring will come out of the number one position. And really, the closer you start to the top, that really adds to what the potential is for scoring. So with the 400 laps, we're really looking for more Dom than we are looking for place differential. There's a couple of place differential guys here today that are going to be worth looking at, but you're not going to be stuffed here with a lot of guys starting in the back. This is going to be the type of race where we're going to be looking for the guys who dominate the most, who are going to win it for us, and the finish position high. We had the last time out here was Larson. He finished third, but started on the pole. I think he had 144 lead laps, so he was up there in the winner. And then you had, and the last time out was a Hamlin win. At this track. Now, this has historically been a track where we've been here a million times. It's very predictable as far as the guys who kind of do well at this track continue to do well at this track. What we're going to see this week, of course, NASCAR just loves throwing curveballs at you. We've got a bit of a tire thing going on where we've got the option tires, and then we've got the tires that they're normally run. So I think they've got 2 sets of the option tires, 7 sets of their regular tires, something to that effect. So it is throwing. So the tires do wear differently. I believe the option tires are going to be faster, but they're going to wear a lot quicker. So that kind of just throws a little bit. It also throws the practice out of really analyzing too closely, because there's going to be a lot of noise with practice times, because some guys ran the option tires, some guys ran their normal tires, and it was and there were combinations of that as well. So looking at guys' long-term speed may not necessarily give you the true answer as to where these cars are at. So typically we like to look at practice times. I don't think that's going to necessarily help here. I still do like the course history, or at least the track history, and looking at that for these guys. And I think you just have to give a nod and a little bump up to the guys who are historically good at figuring out new strategies and really good with tires. And you guys know who those those usual suspects are. We'll go through them as we go through the card here today.
Yeah, I mean, tires are going to be a big deal, and not for the not just for the reason that you said. I mean, I think Kyle Busch came out and said that the option tire is the one that you're going to want to be on at the end of the race. Like that's the one that you're going to want to end on. There's no debate about that. And I think Matty Ice even put into the chat too, and into our NASCAR chat, talking about how guys might even stay out there, on the first kind of bunch to avoid getting lapped. Can those tires last long enough? That'll be the question. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a very interesting wrinkle. I actually kind of applaud NASCAR for doing this, especially on the short tracks where it's been a little lackluster at times. I think Bristol was the one true race where there was a lot of chaos. But when I was doing my homework here, stats, I had Iowa as kind of the main track comp, to where I was just kind of comparing to a recent race. Very similar track length, kind of a similar style. Obviously, no tracks exactly the same, but and a lot of similarities, right? I'm looking at guys who had success there. Obviously, we have this tire wrinkle. So who that bumps up in my opinion, Justin Haley, because I think he's going to do something smart. Him and his team are going to do something smart near the end of the race. But there'll be plenty of wrinkles that we kind of had to discuss. And we're actually going to go in order of starting position because there wasn't a ton of PD guys that I thought we would have a choice from. And that's very interesting. You made a great point too, just bringing it up. You kind of want guys who are going to finish high anyway. What a slate to have it, because when I was looking at it, I think I had maybe 3 guys. So I was like, man, maybe they're clear PDs. And that's not even like PDs as a place differential for guys. And that might not even be the case for sure. So we're going to do place differential. We're going to start with the poll, and we're going to do the first 7 drivers. And then we'll kind of go 7 at a time until we get to 35, 36. So stats, Denny Hamlin on pole. Nice to have. Truex right beside him at number 2. And then obviously Josh Berry's been a short track ace over the last few months. He's been a stud. Is it Hamlin and kind of forget about it? I know that you mentioned that the pole has been just so dominant here. Are you going to kind of take that, omen again?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really tough to beat Hamlin. So, his ownership's going to really show that. I mean, I think he's going to be maybe a 60% ownership in the big GPPs. And I fully expect him to get enough Dom points. But you do have with a guy like Truex, I do think, while he's going to be owned, he will be owned less than Hamlin. So it's not a bad pivot if you want to get off of the super chalky Hamlin and go to the chalky but less so Truex. Not a bad option at all. I think Truex at this track, good history, should be really good with the tire wear. We know how good he is at that, as is Hamlin. So not a terrible pivot. Could easily see both of these guys. I think where Truex, when you look at the betting markets between the two of these, when you look at the props as far as laps led and whatnot, I think they're both at a very similar prop. And I think the expectation here is to look for Truex at the end to lead these later ones. Pretty much if Hamlin gets out early, he will lead a bunch of laps, which is what the expectation is and why that one spot in at this track garners so much attention. And the fact that it's Hamlin, even that more. So that's why we're going to get pretty high ownership there. I think, Berry, I think is an interesting option. He's cheap. I just don't know if we're going to get the lead laps that maybe we need, and if he finishes high as well. So I'm less apt to be playing Berry very much here. I think he's still going to be in the 20% ownership. Starting the place differential doesn't matter as much if he can get at that price. If he can get us some lead laps and a decent finish, of course, he's going to be part of the equation. You're getting him at half. I mean, it's a totally different price point, but you are getting him at about half the ownership that you will a Truex. I'm just less likely to have a lot of Berry lineups than I will Hamlin and Truex. I almost think if there's one guy that you're going to want, like we talk about sometimes in the 20 maxes, who we want to lock in, I think Hamlin might be that guy this week if you want to just kind of take that square away from everybody.
So I was thinking the same, and it was very tough to get away from Hamlin's projection when I was doing them. I know I haven't published them just yet, but I know that I tend to lean heavy toward dominators with the projections because I'm trying to capture the actual points that are scored across a race. There's like something like 1,100 points scored, and there's a lot of Dom points. But like I was like staggered by the amount of Dom points that we had for Hamlin. And it's just because he doesn't really start pole all that often, but when he does, he's excellent. On this kind of Dom rules, though, are you doing a max of like maybe 2 guys from the top 5 or 3 guys from the top 10, anything like that here today, stats?
No, I'm not doing anything like that. I think you want at least 2 dominators though for the race. So, and I'm not really going to. I'm not going to limit it to how many guys I have up at the front. So, let's say I think you could easily get a Hamlin and Truex because we do have some value plays here. So you could easily get those 2 guys make it into the winning lineup. I'm not going to restrict, the guys that I'm having and starting in the top 5 or anything like that.
Yeah, and that's what I was wondering too, because I was debating that, and then I looked at the actual, grid that we had, the starting order. I'm like, man, there's just not a ton of guys that really I get excited about, and we just got a high finishing position from any of these guys. I know that you really want Dom points from a guy like Truex, even Elliott's 9,200. You do want Dom points there, which he is capable of. Christopher Bell, same thing. But when I get to even a guy like Logano, if he got like 5th, I'd almost be happy with it. I think he'd have a chance to be optimal at 9,100. I know I said kind of differently about Chase Elliott. But that's just because that extra 5-6 points could matter at the end all be all. But I don't think I was thinking of maybe doing a max 3 of like the top 10, but maybe I'll relook that after the race. But I'm with you. Hamlin, Truex, really hard to get away from. If you did fade him though, Jake, I'd recommend, grabbing another Dom, though. I don't think I just want to rely on Hamlin to lead 400 laps. I think that you really want, multiple Doms, multiple guys can get up there, and you could even do the leverage. I think when we look at ownership, too, I think you're going to see Bell probably come in at half the ownership of Truex here. And I think, that's kind of leverage there. Not that, Bell's been great at these type of tracks and Truex, is bad here, but that's the type of leverage that you're looking for. Chase Elliott, not a bad leverage play either. Here's the ownership. Yeah, half the ownership, 23 to 46, basically, or 24 to 45. Chase Elliott also cut in half. Josh Berry's like the interesting case though for me stats, because if he got 5th at like 7,800, and I think he's capable of that. I wouldn't play it in like single entry or stuff, but like the Archfield tournaments, I think Berry's going to make the pool again. I got to respect the speed of what he's shown a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I do think you have to respect them. The price is not. It's not terrible. He's really good at these short tracks. So, I mean, that's what you have to, to keep in mind. But is he going to be able to compete with those guys that are starting up front, the JGR cars? That's going to be difficult. Can he get any Dom points from this spot? I think it's going to be real tough for him to be able to beat those guys, the guys out on the front row, and then he's got Chase and Bell right behind. I think it's going to be really tough. I just think there's too much talent and too much speed surrounding him where he becomes too much of a factor in this race. It's going to take a really strong finish, I think, for us to get Berry in the winner.
I'm going to set up a hypothetical here. All right. And it's a stupid hypothetical. You can tell me to screw off here, but what if I told you Berry's starting on the option tire and the other guy's going to start in the classic tire? Right? Like, would that, in your case, bump Berry up where you're like, man, he could lead the first half of this race, or he's trying something different? Or would that scare you off because, man, he's wasting that set? For a lot of guys might prefer that a little bit late.
I think it does give him an advantage, at least early in the race, to be able to get us some Dom points. But does that put him in a position maybe for not as strong a finish late in this race? That's it. I mean, it's very interesting if they did come out that way. I would actually be more, if they told me ahead of time, they told me right now they were going to do that, I'd probably want to take more shares of Berry in that case and then take my chances. I like the fact, because if we play it straight up, I just don't see him making the winning lineup. So I like if he's going to do something different, and none of us know exactly how that different strategy is going to play out. My guess is some of these guys will do something. This is always our big complaint anyway. I mean, a guy like Berry actually has legitimate chances of doing well, but these guys in the back, if they run on the same strategy that everyone else does, we talk about it with pit strategy, well, with tire strategy today, like, why would you do that? Why not just try something different and see how it works? But we'll see. I'm sure everyone's just going to kind of follow the lead and they'll all do something similar. But yeah, if you told me he was on a different strategy, I think that would bump him up for me.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of going to be a little bit interesting for, Garrett makes the point here where, guys in the back to avoid going a lap down. You could even see, I think Justin Haley would just like welcome being lapped, maybe just taking a wave around or something. I know tires are very important here, so you don't really want to risk that too much. But like, what if you did have, 2 extra sets there late in the race and you're just, cruising? I think you'd rather save the sets, but it is going to be interesting. I think Pacres might have that inside scoop, right before they're, going green or whatever, right before they're rolling out of pit road. here's the guy starting on the option tire or whatever. I'm actually gonna be a little bit glued to to Twitter for that one, so it's going to be interesting. Let's go ahead and get through 8 through 15 here, or 8 through 14, I should say. Bubba Wallace, Joey Logano, Tyler Reddick, Blaney, Busch, Byron, Gibbs. Gibbs was the one who jumped off the page the most for me, and that is at 8,400. He has been good at these type of tracks. I think Gibbs is my favorite of the bunch here. And then it's actually, I know it's gross. I'm going to say it. Kyle Busch. Those are my two favorites in this range. And I know I don't love it, but in that mid-range, pricing wise, and they kind of give you a little bit of PD. I mean, I'm okay with it. What about you, Stats?
Oh man. Yeah. I mean, Kyle Busch, it's like, he looks fast again, but he's looked fast before. And obviously that's burned us. I think I'm going to have a tough time. I think a lot of people are going to have a tough time. But when you look at his odds, I mean, not terrible for the price as well. So I think on paper, Kyle Busch does look good. I think you probably, from a game theory standpoint, good GPP play, because I think a lot of people are going to have that sour taste in their mouth with Busch. So he winds up being lesser owned than he should be, which just automatically, that's what we're looking for. That should get you on Kyle Busch, but I'm not. I'm going to do it in a way that I basically have to hold my nose and fire on it. But I agree with you. I think Kyle Busch winds up being a decent play just for the fact that he will be under owned for where, on paper at least, it looks like he should be owned on this day. But Logano to me is the one. So I like Joey because of the fact that whenever we do something different, when we have a different strategy, it always seems like Logano's the guy who kind of figures it out. It's also one of his best tracks historically. So I think, he's going to get some decent ownership here. I don't know where Sabres got him as far as ownership. Do you have it up there? Ownership's on Logano,
yeah,
but I think it's going to be
24% ownership.
Yeah. So I think that's about right. The 25 to 30%, I think, for Logano. I think he winds up being very interesting. I think starting ninth may take some people off of him as well, but don't be shocked if Logano finds his way to lead some laps in this one and gets a really strong finish, because he does have a history of doing that. Plus his track history here, I think, is pretty good. Reddick's another guy. Did we get to 10 or did we stop below that? I forget.
No, we got to 8. So we still got, Bubba to Gibbs.
Oh, Bubba to Gibbs. Yeah, no. Well, Gibbs you mentioned a little bit as well. I do like Gibbs as well as a play when you look at where his the betting markets are relative to the price. That's not a bad one either. I think he's like 26 to 1. Again, I didn't mention. I mean, Kyle Busch like 19 to 1 at $200 less. So that's the thing that we're talking about here in the betting markets. But I do like Gibbs as well. I think similar ownership, probably a little bit higher than Busch. I think he looked good in practice, but again, we have to take that with a grain of salt. But I think Gibbs has the potential to be inside the top 10. I would say one of the guys that I don't particularly like is starting 11th is Blaney. Has not been a really good track for Blaney. And then we've got, what are we going up to 12? No, we're going up to Gibbs, so up to 14. But yeah, I think, and then Byron's another guy. Won't be, I don't think, high owned. I think he's an okay play. But if we're going to go with the, if we're going to go with the Hendrick cars, I think I would prefer Elliott and certainly Larson there. So that's kind of my take on these guys here. I think Bubba's. I didn't mention Bubba, but Bubba for me, I mean, I think he's going to be fast. He doesn't necessarily lead a bunch of laps. So starting 8th, I don't know if we're going to see a lot of laps led with Bubba. So I think that's the only downside I have there. But I think he can run well on the short track.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there, and it is interesting because look, these guys are all pretty pricey. I mean, outside of Austin Dillon, every one of these guys is 7.6K or above. Austin Dillon was even a guy where, can you really trust the practice data 5,800 and starting that high up, right? Like it's just tough, and we really haven't gotten into it. Any cheap guys here who maybe be able to kind of challenge for a top 15. Just shows that we did have extended practice time. We did have qualifying and stuff too, which went well. All these cars seem to be up and running. That kind of leads us right into Kyle Larson, who's starting 15th. We want Dom points. Is Kyle Larson this week able to get Dom points here, Stats?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt he could get some Dom points, but I think the fact that he is starting 15th, I think typically that's something that we'd say, oh, we get some good place differential. But I think more important at his price is he's going to have to get us some down points. But I don't think there's any doubt he can. He's going to have one of the top cars here. It is Hendrick, and we know JGR is by far the favorite for this race. But I mean, Larson pretty much anywhere and in any situation, I always like his chances of being able to figure out the track. So I think Larson here in the 15th spot. Where we got the ownership, because some of the ownership I'm looking at is kind of low. It's not I don't think it's a bad pivot at
21%.
all. Yeah, I've been seeing 20, 25%. I think he'd be smart to be overweight Larson. I think you've got the chance for him to win this race, obviously. Get a bunch of late down points. You would expect it to be later in this race as opposed to early. And don't disregard his practice times because he went with I think he started on the option tires, and he did it when there was a lot of rubber down on the track. So he just had totally different practice than a lot of these guys did. So I would be a little leery of looking at that too much. We just know what Larson is, and I think if you're going to get him at that lower ownership, at that higher price, it's just going to be tough. It's going to basically what you're banking on is the fact that Hamlin is not going to be in the nuts. I think it's going to be tough to get the both of them. Could happen, but I think that's really what you're looking at is maybe one of the cheaper, maybe an Elliott or something like that gets a lot of the earlier lead lap times. But could it happen where we get a Larson and a Hamlin? It could, but I think that would be the best scenario there if you played Larson maybe without that, and then looking for someone else here in that top, starting early. I mean, if it's a Berry, if we went with that Berry strategy and he eats up all those early laps, now all of a sudden I think that opens it up much more for a guy like Larson to be able to use the point differential and get us some down points and some laps led to be a good play. So from there we've got Gragson. Not going to be a huge fan of Gragson here. I think ownership extremely low. I think Bowman, fine. I mean, decent place differential for where he can potentially finish the race. But I mean, his odds, considering what where his price is, when you look at it, he's more expensive than the guys like Busch and whatnot. And his odds are like through the roof compared to Busch and Gibbs and those guys. So I don't think you can be too high on Alex Bowman, even though decent place differential from those guys. I think, again, a guy like Cindric, maybe you're going to sprinkle in a little bit of. And how deep did you want to go up to like 20 with these guys?
Yeah, let's go all the way to Suarez even. You know what?
Suarez,
so Suarez and Chastain are teammates. Let's just do Trackhouse too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll get with Hocevar, I think it's probably, he's in a similar spot. Like he's probably going to finish somewhere close to where he starts in this race. I think you can sprinkle him in GPPs. And I think Zane Smith, I think just starts too high for me. So no interest. I think Suarez winds up being a fairly interesting case. He again, look good in practice, take it with a grain of salt. He has struggled at this track before, and he's going to have to do something a little bit more than he has done in the past in order to bring back value. His odds around 60-1 are actually, not too far off of where a Bowman is. And he should be about double the ownership as Bowman. We're going to get a little bit better place differential with a Suarez. If you look at the other Trackhouse guy, we want to go with the last two Trackhouse guys. I think Chastain becomes a little bit more interesting. He will be higher owned than anyone else. I think outside of maybe Larson that we just talked about in this group. I think Trackhouse, talk Trackhouse with Suarez, Trackhouse with Chastain. They have found some speed coming off the break. So we'll see. I just prefer Chastain here, maybe over Suarez, just because you look at Chastain's win odds at 26 to 1, 7,900. I think is a pretty good price for Chastain. I think he's the most interesting play here, along with Larson of this group. I think Chastain has a chance to get us into the winner.
Yeah, I think Chastain, especially not because he just drove a Cincinnati Reds car, for the Bristol Motor Speedway baseball game, is going to mark my, one of my favorite drivers for today. I know that I always love playing Chastain and stuff, but starting 22nd, we have limited place differential drivers who I really like. I'm actually going to be buying on Trackhouse because Suarez also in that race at Iowa was very good. And I don't think Trackhouse is going to be afraid to try something new, which I think that you need to have, especially when you're starting in the 20s here. I think they're going to be willing to take the risks that could see, very good fortune here. And especially late in the race with those tires, I don't know. I think that they're going to try something unique. Maybe Suarez and Chastain are able to gain 10, 12 spots. They're definitely my favorite in this range. I don't love Gragson. Gragson did okay at Iowa too, but I'm going to be overweight on Larson. He was a guy that you can't not be overweight, right? Like, what if Hamlin did Dom a lot and stuff? Well, cool. They're really easy to fit together. At that point, you probably want to fade. You can't play Truex, Larson, and Hamlin together. Maybe you can. I actually haven't checked that one yet. But it's not something that I really want to do. And I'd rather just kind of, gravitate to these two mid-range guys. I've never really want to play Daniel Suarez. I just haven't done it this year. But this is a track that I might be willing to buy on. And it's just because of what he's done at these other short tracks where, just at Iowa, he raced really well. Maybe it's the start of his form, maybe changing a little bit. We only got like 5-6 minutes left before I got to let you go for your FanDuel Live final. So let's keep pushing forward. Let's go ahead and get to this 23 through 30 range, and then we'll finish out with Burton on down afterwards. When I look at this range here, stats, Preece, Jones, McDowell, and then obviously the big guy, Keselowski, is going to be probably the most popular place differential driver on this slate. Do you agree with that?
Oh, there's no doubt. I think that's the best option I think you have for place differential. You're paying the 9,600, but I like Keselowski quite a bit. A guy who can easily finish high. I think another guy who we can trust on with this different tire situation that we've got going on. I think it's a guy that we've got a lot of trust in and has been performing really well as of late. So I think Keselowski becomes the obvious play down low, and that would be he's going to be my highest owned guy, of course, in this range. When you look at the other guys really in this range, there's a few guys that I wouldn't really touch. When you look at Gilliland on the front row not on the front row, but driving for front row, I prefer him over McDowell, his teammate. You're going to see, we talked about it earlier in the year. McDowell's been pretty good, but since the fact that he will not be with this team next year, you got to figure down the stretch here that they're giving a lot more attention to the Gilliland car. So I do prefer the Gilliland in the spot starting ahead of McDowell, but I think McDowell gets a little bit more ownership, but I would lean a little bit more on Gilliland there. I think Briscoe's the guy who probably gets the second most ownership behind Keselowski in this group. So I would look to Briscoe for somewhere around maybe 30% ownership. And he's a good play. I mean, starting 25th, he looked pretty smooth in the practices. And I think, SHR cars on the short track have done well. So I think Briscoe, not a bad play, not a bad option in this range. I think Preece is a place differential guy. But, he hasn't been necessarily a guy on the short tracks that we want to target. LaJoie, I didn't even mention. I think you kind of throw him out starting 24th. I just think too high. I think Jones has a little bit of upside. He'll get some ownership, less so than probably, I think, Gilliland and McDowell. So he's probably like fourth or fifth choice in this range. But Jones can get you top 15, I think, at a short track. I don't expect a really high finish out of him. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I'm looking at. It's really going to be Keselowski with Briscoe as my most owned in this group. And then I think I'm going to go over the market there on Gilliland and under the market on McDowell.
That's a very interesting point because, I looked at McDowell and he was someone who really hasn't done that great here. But at the same time, he's going to get ownership because, well, he's a decent car starting 28th. But if you want to go Gilliland, I mean, that's only 5 spots that you're paying for way less ownership and great leverage in that sense. I really kind of get on board with that for, especially for large field tournaments and stuff. I like that a lot. I'm with you on Briscoe. I don't think the 1% ownership on SaberSim's right there at all. I think that Briscoe is going to be owned a decent little bit. I'm going to have a lot of Briscoe just because I know I can trust him. He's starting 25th. There's not a ton of place differential drivers that I really fall in love with. I think a lot of people are going to land on him in that 10. I think he's going to end up like 10 or 15%, maybe 10%. Preece, I'm okay with. Jones, I'm okay with. But yeah, I'm going to be way overweight on Keselowski because, look, there's not a whole lot of other guys who are going to be able to move up 12, 15 spots with that expectation at all. Let's finish up here. I'm going to just do the weekly thing where I just say I'm jamming in Justin Haley, starting 36th, a race that requires even a little bit of strategy thought. He's going to be a core play for me. He's going to be my driver of the day. I don't think he's going to be 4% owned either. I think it'll be like, 10, 15. But Justin Haley's my core play of the day. I'm also going to have a little bit of Nemechek. I'm actually going to go with Retzlaff a little bit just because that pure punt is going to be there. And then Stenhouse, obviously going to be popular, 5,700. This is a decent range. I might have two guys from your stats just, because one, I need the value. And two, I mean, they're not bad drivers either.
Yeah, I agree. I think you could play a couple of guys down here because of the fact that we want to get maybe some of these more expensive drivers in there that we were talking about up at the top, which I do think at a minimum we get Hamlin in the winter, and then we're going to probably need one of those other guys at the close to 10K range or even higher. So to do that, we're going to have to fit a couple of these in. For me, Stenhouse, I think, becomes my favorite play. Stenhouse at the last couple of short tracks, really good. I mean, he's been top 10 at the last two short tracks. We'll see if we can continue that. So for me, down at this range, he is my favorite play. And then I would say behind that would be Nemechek. Starts 35th, got pretty good place differential there. I'm just worried necessarily about him. You're worried about a lot of these guys getting lapped here on a short track. I think that can easily happen to Nemechek. But I like your call with Haley as well. So I think I'll have a decent bit of Haley. I don't know. You're probably going to be going a little bit harder down here because I'm going to have Stenhouse for more. So I may even put Stenhouse in my core. I'm not sure yet. Haven't done it yet. But I think you're going to want to throw one of these cheap guys in the core and then really hammer some of the higher price guys. So I do think Haley makes that mix for me. Stenhouse for sure, Nemechek, and I think the rest of them, it's going to be pretty slim pickings down here. I think if you throw one in, it's purely a flyer. For the 150 lineups, I'll sprinkle in a couple of these guys, but the remaining guys, I would not play two of them. If you're going to throw one in just to be different and maybe take a one shot at a big GPP, something like that. But I think there are definitely better options here between Stenhouse, Haley, and Nemechek.
Yeah, I think when you just go two guys, especially Stenhouse, and you could go Haley or you can go anyone else in that range because he's 6K too. Like the lineup is just the nuts here. I'm really excited for this slate because I think you can get two really good doms, with two guys down here and then two guys from the mid range, even or even another place differential driver that we just talked about. So I think I'm going to be going that route here, stats. Let's go ahead and get into our drivers of the day. I'm going to let you get to your FanDuel Live final. Good luck today with that. Let's get your driver of the day before I let you go, though.
All right, sort it for me so I know I'm getting someone under 20%.
Yes. Let's see here. We got basically can't do Keselowski as your place differential. Chastain's off the board too. There's a lot of guys that are projecting for 20% or more.
Well, I think they had Briscoe way low. So
yes,
that's going to be the guy that I'm going to put in there. And I think he may come in. Well, is he coming in 21? They have much.
No.
Oh, is that his points?
Yeah.
No.
Points. Yeah.
Is that 1%?
Yeah, 1%.
Oh God, no. Yeah. He'll be high. He might even come in over the 20. But I'll cheat. I'm gonna take Briscoe in my as my driver of the day under 20%.
I love it. I'm going to go with Justin Haley at 6K. Look, we could tell you the dumbs all day long. We want to stay under 20% with that driver of the day. You know who the studs are here. Let's go ahead and, hopefully come out on top. Hopefully you come out on top twice today here, stats. You got the FanDuel Live final that's going to finish up around 8 o'clock or something like that. And then you'll have the NASCAR race to finish up after winning 495K on the FanDuel. Then you can win 100K on NASCAR. Simple day, right?
It'll be nice and easy. And then I'll extend my trip if that happens.
Yes, and then you can just enjoy all the wine possible there. And
yes.
See you guys. Have a good one, and bye-bye.